The new year has ushered in, and while most people are busy trying to stick to their resolutions, fans of the FPS genre are on the lookout for the next big title. Whether anyone admits it or not, first-person shooters such as the Wolfenstein 3D and Half-Life have developed a generation of FPS lovers. And if you're in the same boat, we've got you covered with our list of the most anticipated FPS games coming in 2022. Number 10, Shadow Warrior 3. Shadow Warrior 3 is an upcoming first-person shooter game developed by Flying Wild Hog and published by Devolver Digital. As the sequel to Shadow Warrior 2, 2016, the game is set to be released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in March 2022. Like its predecessors, the game is a first-person shooter and the player assumes control of Lo Wang, the series protagonist. In the game, Lo Wang has access to a large arsenal of firearms which can be used to defeat enemies. In addition, he also wields a katana, which is limited to close-quarters combat. At close range, players can execute wounded enemies. They can also use the environment to their advantage. As the player progresses in the game, they receive new weapons and gadgets which aid them in combat, all of which are meant to be unlocked and available by the time the player reaches the midpoint of the campaign. The game features more linear levels and a more streamlined upgrade system when compared with Shadow Warrior 2, though it introduced new movement options for Lo Wang, such as giving him the option to wall run, double jump, air dash, and utilize a grappling hook to quickly transverse between platforms and vertical surfaces. Number 9, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is an upcoming action role-playing first-person shooter video game developed by Gearbox Software and published by 2K Games. It is a spin-off in the Borderlands series and a successor to Borderlands 2, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. The game is set to be released for Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and Series S in March 2022. In Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, players can create their own playable characters. The game features 6 different character classes, and for the first time in the series, players can mix and match these skills for their characters. The playable avatars have stats which can be upgraded using hero points. Players have a large arsenal of weapons and firearms at their disposal, and for the first time in the series, players can wield melee weapons. The game features the same procedurally generated loot system from the Borderlands series, which is capable of generating numerous combinations of weapons and other gear. Players can also cast different magical spells such as summoning meteors, or transforming enemies into sheep. The game features an overworld, which is used by the playable characters to transverse to various locations in the game. There are random combat encounters and quests that can only be completed in the overworld. Number 8, Redfall. Redfall is an upcoming action-adventure game developed by Arcane Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game is set to be released for Microsoft Windows and Xbox Series X in summer 2022. Redfall will be an open-world, action-adventure first-person shooter that features both single-player and cooperative multiplayer modes. Players can choose among 4 playable characters, each with unique backgrounds and abilities, to fight against vampires as well as human enemies within the game. Number 7, Starfield. Starfield is an upcoming action role-playing video game developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game was formally announced during Bethesda's E3 press conference in 2018. The game was described as a wholly new, next-generation experience set in an entirely new space-themed world. It will be the first new intellectual property developed by Bethesda in over 25 years. The game is scheduled to be released on November 11, 2022 for Microsoft Windows and Xbox Series X. Number 6, Dying Light 2 Stay Human. Dying Light 2 Stay Human is an action role-playing survival horror video game featuring a zombie apocalyptic-themed open world. Set 22 years after Dying Light, it stars a new protagonist named Aiden Caldwell, voiced by Jonah Scott, who is equipped with various parkour skills. Players can perform actions such as climbing ledges, sliding, leaping off from edges, and wall running to quickly navigate the city. It was confirmed that there are over 3,000 parkour animations to give a more fluid free-running experience. Tools such as a grappling hook and a paraglider also aid traversal in the city. Aiden can also use the undead to break his fall. The game is mostly melee-based with the majority of fighting using melee weapons. The melee weapons have a limited lifespan and will degrade as the player uses them in combat. Long-range weapons such as crossbows, shotguns, and spears can be used as well. Weapons can be upgraded with different blueprints and components which can be found by breaking down weapons for craft parts. Aiden can also utilize superhuman skills due to the infection. New zombies have been added. Like the first game, the zombies are slow when exposed to sunlight, but they become more aggressive and hostile at night. Number 5, Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart is an upcoming action role-playing video game developed and published by Russian studio Mundfish, who also developed the VR game, Soviet Lunapark, which was discontinued. The game is planned for release for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and Series S. Atomic Heart is a FPS video game with action role-playing elements. The combat in the game consists of shooting and melee swinging with improvised weapons. There is a crafting system where the weapons can be pieced together from metal parts that can be detached from robots or taken from household appliances. Ammo in the game is scarce and there is a sneaking option. Quick time events are also featured in the game. Number 4, Scorn. Scorn is an upcoming first-person biopunk survival horror adventure video game developed by Serbian developer Ebb Software for Microsoft Windows and Xbox Series X. The player controls a skinless humanoid, lost in a fictional nightmarish alien planet filled with odd creatures and living techno-organic structure composed of steel, flesh, and bone. The player will explore different interconnected regions in a non-linear fashion, searching for answers that will explain more about the game's world. The game, thus far, presents two main weapons, a pistol and a 3-barrel rifle that fire some forms of organic spikes. The player starts with the pistol, a 6-shot weapon dealing mild damage to the in-game enemies. It appears to be completely organic, beginning with the mouth-looking base for the weapon which can be opened to let the pistol itself be removed and exchanged for the shotgun. The shotgun is a 3-shot weapon that deals considerable damage to enemies close up, but the damage drops at long distances. The shotgun is composed of the same materials as the pistol, appearing to be made from organic matter. Number 3, Warhammer 40,000: Dark Tide. Warhammer is an upcoming first-person action game set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe being developed and published by Swedish video game studio Fatshark. It is planned to be released exclusively for Microsoft Windows and Xbox Series X in 2022. The game will use a similar formula to that used in Fatshark's Warhammer, Vermintide 2, in which 4 players cooperate to defeat periodic waves of AI-controlled enemies. Number 2, Witchfire. Witchfire is an upcoming first-person shooter video game being developed by Polish independent studio The Astronauts for Microsoft Windows. The game is set to release on early access on Q4 2022. The game will use a similar formula to that used in Fatshark's Warhammer, Vermintide 2, in which 4 players cooperate to defeat periodic waves of AI-controlled enemies. Number 1, Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl is an upcoming first-person shooter game developed and published by GSC Game World. Set to release for Microsoft Windows and the Xbox Series X in December 2022, it will be the 4th game released in the STALKER video game series, the first game in the series released on consoles, as well as the first STALKER game in 13 years since the release of Call of Pripyat in 2009. Initially announced following the release of Call of Pripyat, it was planned release in 2012, before it was ultimately cancelled on the year of its intended release. The game resurfaced years later in 2018, with the development restarted and powered by the Unreal Engine 5, and a new release date on December 8, 2022.